The Ventaxians ignored the Galactic Council's warnings about humanity's legendary brutality, assuming they could easily enslave the inferior humans, a fatal mistake they would soon regret. Will Bell strode into the council chamber, his combat boots ringing against the metallic floor. The Ventaxian High Councillor Horus loomed over the battle-hardened ex-SEAL. "Will Bell, the council needs your help," Horus growled. "A rogue Ventaxian warlord named Krax has been attacking your outer colonies. He's captured your friend Jack Harper. Our forces can't stop Krax. He knows our weaknesses too well. But you humans are unpredictable, savage. If anyone can defeat Krax, it's you." Will clenched his fists, the scars on his knuckles white against his tanned skin. Memories of fighting alongside Jack flooded his mind. Krax had made this personal. "I'll hunt down that scaly bastard," Will snarled. "Krax is going to learn why you don't fuck with humanity." Horus nodded, his reptilian eyes glinting. "We're giving you command of the UNSS Prometheus and our best human crew, but be careful. There may be more to Krax's motives. If he succeeds, it could spark a galactic war. You're our only hope." As Will turned to leave, he knew failure wasn't an option. Jack's life and the fate of humanity's colonies depended on him. It was time to show the galaxy what humans were made of. Time to make the Ventaxians regret ever daring to underestimate Earth. Will's grip tightened on the armrest as the UNSS Prometheus shuddered, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate for the erratic maneuvers. The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Zal, the Ventaxian informant, sat hunched in a corner, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates provided by Zale," Lieutenant Reeves reported, her fingers flying across the navigational controls. "But the asteroid field is heavily saturated with electromagnetic interference. Our sensors are barely functioning." Will nodded, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "Keep us steady, Lieutenant. We can't afford to be caught off guard." As if on cue, a barrage of plasma bolts slammed into the Prometheus shields, sending sparks flying across the bridge. "Ventaxian fighters, close in fast!" Dr. Chen shouted, his hands racing over the tactical console. "They must have been waiting for us." Will leaped from his chair, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Evasive maneuvers. Divert all power to the shields and stealth systems." The Prometheus lurched as Will took the helm, his hands guiding the ship through the treacherous asteroid field with instinctive precision. The Ventaxian fighters swarmed around them, their weapons carving molten scars into the ship's armored hull. "Captain, we can't take much more of this," Lieutenant Reeves warned, her face strained with tension. Will's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then a flash of inspiration struck him. "Dr. Chen, prepare a series of decoy drones, program them to emit false sensor readings, and deploy them on my mark." Dr. Chen nodded, his fingers already inputting the necessary commands. "Drones ready, Captain." "Launch them now." A flurry of metallic orbs burst from the Prometheus launch bays, streaking into the asteroid field. The Ventaxian fighters, their sensors confused by the drone's deceptive signals, peeled away from the Prometheus, chasing after the false targets. "It's working!" Lieutenant Reeves exclaimed, relief washing over her features. "They're moving away from us." Will allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning to his crew. "Prepare the cloaked shuttle, we're going in." Minutes later, Will, Lieutenant Reeves, and Dr. Chen boarded the shuttle, their weapons primed and ready. As the Prometheus continued to draw the Ventaxian fighters away, the shuttle slipped silently through the asteroid field, its cloaking device rendering it invisible to sensors. They landed in a hidden hangar bay within Krax's base, the shuttle's ramp lowering to reveal a dimly lit corridor. Will took point, his combat instincts guiding him forward. The team moved swiftly, their footsteps muffled by the base's metallic floors. As they delved deeper into the complex, they encountered pockets of resistance from Krax's soldiers. Will and his team engaged in brutal close-quarters combat, their training and determination proving a match for the Ventaxians' raw strength and ferocity. They fought their way to the central command center, the doors hissing open to reveal a shocking sight. There, standing alongside Krax and Tharok, was Jack Harper, Will's captured friend. But Jack wasn't a prisoner. He stood tall and proud, a look of grim determination etched onto his face. "Jack!" Will gasped, his weapon lowering slightly. "What the hell is going on?" Jack stepped forward, his eyes meeting Will's. "I'm sorry, Will, but the Galactic Council has failed us. They're too weak to protect our colonies, too mired in bureaucracy to take action. Krax and we've found a better way. A way for humans and Ventaxians to rule the galaxy together." Will's mind reeled, torn between loyalty to his friend and duty to the Council. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the choice he made now would shape its future forever. Will's head spun, trying to process Jack's words. His jaw tightened, fingers gripping his blaster. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, Krax slammed his fist on a control panel. A holographic display flickered to life, showing the intricate schematics of a mind control device. "Behold the key to our new galactic order," Krax hissed. "With this device we will bring the Ventaxian colonies to their knees, and soon the human colonies in the outer rim will follow." Will's eyes widened. "You're insane. The Council won't stand for this." Krax sneered. "The Council is weak. They couldn't stop me from taking control of our colonies, and they won't stop me now." Will glanced at his team, their faces grim. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Krax's soldiers, augmented by the mind-controlled Ventaxians, closed in around them. In a flash, Will activated a hidden control on his combat suit. A pulse of electromagnetic energy burst outward, washing over the room. The mind-control devices on the Ventaxians sparked and smoked, falling away. For a moment, the Ventaxians stood still, blinking in confusion. Then realization dawned, and they turned on Krax and his soldiers with a roar of fury. Chaos erupted as blaster fire filled the air. Will dove for cover, his team following suit. They joined the fray, fighting alongside the newly freed Ventaxians. But amidst the confusion, Krax and Tharok slipped away, racing toward the hangar bay. "They're getting away," Will shouted, ducking as a blaster bolt sizzled past his head. Jack, his face twisted with anger, sprinted after them. Will hesitated for a split second, then followed, leaving Lieutenant Reeves and Dr. Chen to mop up the remaining resistance. They burst into the hangar bay, just as Krax and Tharok boarded a sleek Ventaxian battlecruiser. The ship's engines roared to life, and it lifted off, blasting through the hangar doors and into the asteroid field beyond. Will and Jack leaped into a pair of Ventaxian fighters, pursuing the fleeing ship. They wove through the asteroids, exchanging fire with the battlecruiser's rear turrets. As they closed in, a comm channel crackled to life. A gaunt, pale-skinned figure appeared on their screens, Dr. Zoran Nexus, his eyes gleaming with madness. "Fools, you think you've won?" Dr. Nexus cackled. "The mind control device was just the beginning. With the power of the Zephyrians behind me, I will bring the galaxy to its knees." Will gritted his teeth. "Not if we have anything to say about it." He and Jack pushed their fighters to the limit, dodging and weaving through the asteroid field. They managed to disable the battlecruiser's engines, forcing it to crash land on a large asteroid. They landed their fighters nearby, rushing into the damaged ship. They fought their way to the bridge, where they confronted Dr. Nexus and the remnants of Krax's forces. The battle was brutal. Will and Jack fought side by side, their differences forgotten in the heat of combat. They managed to destroy the mind control device and capture Dr. Nexus, but not without cost. Jack slumped against a console, clutching a deep wound in his side. The ship shuddered around them, alarms blaring as critical systems began to fail. Will looked from his wounded friend to the unconscious form of Dr. Nexus. The ship was coming apart, and he had to make a choice: save Jack, or ensure that the mad scientist faced justice. The seconds ticked by as Will's mind raced, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Will glanced from Jack's wounded form to the unconscious Dr. Nexus, the ship shaking violently around them. Alarms blared, the acrid stench of burning circuitry filling the air. Will's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't leave Jack behind, not after everything they'd been through together. Will grabbed Jack, slinging his friend's arm over his shoulder. "Come on, buddy, we're getting out of here." Jack groaned in pain as Will half dragged, half carried him through the disintegrating ship. Debris rained down, sparks showering from ruptured conduits. Will's combat suit strained, its servos whining as it augmented his strength. They stumbled into the escape pod bay, the last Ventaxian pod waiting. Will heaved Jack inside, then clambered in after him. The pod sealed with a hiss, its thrusters flaring to life. Will punched the eject button, the pod blasting free from the doomed ship. Through the pod's viewport, Will watched the battlecruiser explode. A brilliant fireball consuming the vessel. Another pod shot away from the wreckage, Dr. Nexus escaping to fight another day. Will turned his attention to Jack, his suit's medical systems already working to stabilize his friend's condition. He applied pressure to the wound, the suit injecting coagulants and painkillers. Jack's breathing steadied, his eyes fluttering open. You saved me," Jack rasped, his voice weak. "I couldn't leave you behind," Will replied, his voice thick with emotion. "We're in this together no matter what." The pod drifted through space, the Prometheus's tractor beam locking on and drawing them into the hangar bay. As the pod settled to the deck, medics rushed forward, transferring Jack to a stretcher. Will followed, his mind racing. They'd stopped cracks and destroyed the mind control device, but at what cost? And with Dr. Nexus still at large, the threat was far from over. Hours later, Will sat at Jack's bedside in the med bay, his friend resting comfortably. The door hissed open, revealing Zal, the Ventaxian informant. The reptilian's eyes were wide, his scales pale. "Commander Bell, I have urgent information," Zal hissed, his voice low. "Dr. Nexus, he was not working alone." Will leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Zal glanced around nervously, as if fearing hidden listeners. "There is a faction within the Galactic Council, a group known as the Shadow Cabal. They've been secretly funding Dr. Nexus's research, as well as Krax's operations." Will's blood ran cold. A conspiracy within the Council itself. It was almost too much to believe. "Why would they do this?" Will demanded, his fists clenching. "Power," Zal replied, his eyes narrowing. "They seek to destabilize the balance of power in the galaxy, to create a new order with themselves at the top." Will stood, his mind racing. If Zal was right, then their mission was far from over. They had to investigate this shadow cabal to root out the corruption at the heart of the Council. "We'll need proof," Will said, his voice grim. "Hard evidence to take to the Council." Zal nodded, producing a data chip from his robes. "I've compiled what intelligence I could gather. It's not much, but it's a start." Will took the chip, his jaw set with determination. He and Jack had a new mission, one that would take them to the darkest corners of the galaxy. As Jack recovered, Will began to investigate, using his contacts within the Council and the intelligence provided by Zal. The deeper he dug, the more disturbing the picture became. The Shadow Cabal's influence ran deep, a web of corruption and deceit that reached the highest levels of power. The trail eventually led them to a remote, uncharted planet on the fringes of Ventaxian space. Will and Jack, now fully recovered, took a small ship, slipping past the planet's defenses under the cover of a meteor shower. They landed in a rocky canyon, the ship's camouflage systems rendering it nearly invisible. With weapons primed, they set out on foot, picking their way through the rugged terrain. After hours of hiking, they discovered a hidden entrance set into the canyon wall. Will's suit scanners detected a complex network of tunnels and chambers beyond, shielded from orbital scans. They slipped inside, moving silently through the dimly lit corridors. The air was thick with the stench of chemicals and decay, a cloying sweetness that turned the stomach. As they delved deeper into the facility, they discovered the true horror of the Shadow Cabal's work. In vast laboratories, human and Ventaxian test subjects lay strapped to operating tables, their bodies twisted and augmented by grotesque experiments. Mind control devices, far more advanced than the one used by cracks, were implanted in their skulls, their eyes vacant and lifeless. Will and Jack exchanged a look of disgust and anger. This wasn't just a rogue operation. It was a systematic effort to create an army of mind-controlled super-soldiers, loyal only to the Shadow Cabal. They set to work, planting explosives throughout the facility. But as they prepared to make their escape, a voice echoed through the chambers, the cold, mocking tone of Dr. Nexus. "Did you really think it would be so easy, Commander Bell?" Dr. Nexus sneered, his voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. "You've stumbled into something far bigger than you could possibly imagine." Will and Jack spun, weapons raised, as a group of heavily armed Shadow Cabal operatives emerged from the shadows. At their head stood Dr. Nexus, a cruel smile twisting his gaunt features. "The galaxy will be ours," Dr. Nexus declared, his eyes gleaming with madness, "and you, Commander Bell, will be the first to fall." With a roar of defiance, Will and Jack opened fire, diving for cover as the Shadow Cabal operatives returned fire. The chamber erupted into a fierce battle, energy bolts scorching the air, explosions rocking the facility. Will and Jack fought with desperate fury, their weapons blazing, their suits augmenting their speed and strength. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to yield, refused to let the Shadow Cabal's evil triumph. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and Will and Jack were the only ones who could tip the scales. They fought on, their determination unbreakable, their courage unwavering in the face of impossible odds. Will and Jack fought side by side, blasting their way through the Shadow Cabal's defenses. The air sizzled with plasma bolts as they cut down genetically enhanced super soldiers, their augmented bodies no match for the humans' skill and determination. They burst into Dr. Nexus's central laboratory, a cavernous chamber filled with pulsing machinery and glowing containment tanks. The mad scientist stood at the center, his gaunt face twisted in a triumphant sneer. "Ah, Commander Bell and his loyal lapdog," Dr. Nexus cackled. "You're just in time to witness the dawn of a new era." He gestured to a massive holographic display which flickered to life, revealing a star map of the galaxy. Countless worlds were highlighted, each one connected by a web of pulsing lines. "Behold the true extent of the Shadow Cabal's plan," Dr. Nexus gloated. "With our mind-control technology, we will enslave not just the Ventaxians and humans, but all sentient life in the galaxy." Will's blood ran cold. The scope of the Shadow Cabal's ambition was staggering. He turned to Jack, expecting to see the same horror on his friend's face. But Jack's expression was one of calm satisfaction. He stepped forward, his blaster lowering. "You've done well, Dr. Nexus," Jack said, his voice cold. "The Shadow Cabal is pleased with your progress." Will's heart shattered. "Jack, what are you doing?" Jack turned to face him, a cruel smile on his lips. "I'm taking my rightful place in the new Galactic Order, Will. The Shadow Cabal promised me power, and I intend to claim it." He raised his blaster, aiming it squarely at Will's chest. "I'm sorry, old friend, but you're standing in the way of progress." Will dove for cover as Jack opened fire, energy bolts scorching the air. He rolled behind a console, his mind reeling. His best friend, a traitor, it was almost too much to bear. But he had no time to dwell on the betrayal. Dr. Nexus's super soldiers were closing in, their weapons blazing. Will returned fire, his shots precise and deadly. He fought his way to the central control panel, his eyes scanning the screens. There, at the heart of the system, was the mind control device. If he could destroy it, the Shadow Cabal's plan would be thwarted. But Jack was there, blocking his path. The two men engaged in a brutal hand-to-hand combat, their blows fueled by anger and desperation. Around them, the facility began to self-destruct, alarms blaring, explosions rocking the chamber. Will and Jack fought on, oblivious to the chaos, locked in a deadly dance. With a final, crushing blow, Will sent Jack sprawling. He leaped for the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys. But Jack was not finished. He staggered to his feet, raising his blaster. Will spun, firing his own weapon. The two bolts collided in mid-air, a blinding flash of energy. When the glare faded, Jack lay still, a smoking hole in his chest. Will, gravely wounded, slumped against the console. With the last of his strength, he entered the self-destruct sequence. The mind control device exploded in a cascade of sparks and flames. Will smiled, his vision fading. He had done it. The galaxy was safe. His sacrifice had not been in vain. As the facility crumbled around him, Will closed his eyes, embracing the darkness. His final thoughts were of the countless lives he had saved and the friend he had lost. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council moved swiftly to root out the remaining members of the Shadow Cabal. The conspirators were brought to justice, their schemes laid bare before the galaxy. The Ventaxians, chastened by their failure to stop Krax and humbled by humanity's bravery, sought to forge a new alliance with Earth. Delegates from both worlds met in neutral territory, their talks marked by a newfound respect and understanding. Across the galaxy, Will's name became a rallying cry, a symbol of hope and defiance in the face of tyranny. Statues were erected in his honor, his story told and retold in the halls of power and the streets of countless worlds. And in a small quiet ceremony, Jack was laid to rest, his betrayal forgiven, his memory honored. For in the end, he had seen the error of his ways and had sought to make amends. The galaxy had been scarred by the conflict, but it had emerged stronger, united by a common purpose. Will's legacy would endure, a shining beacon in the darkness, guiding the way to a brighter future. If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.